Well, kia ora, and welcome to my daily chorus. I'm Bernard Hickey for The Kaka. This is my podcast and video that goes out with an email newsletter via Substack. It's called The Kaka. It's all about Aotearoa's political economy around housing, climate and poverty. Yesterday seemed to mark something of a turning point in the political mood of our country. Yesterday, Christopher Luxon was challenged directly and repeatedly by members of the press gallery about the government's economic strategy and its strategy around housing and poverty. It was after he was booed by the crowd at the ANZ netball final in Auckland on Sunday. And at the beginning of the post-cabinet news conference yesterday, he made a point of spending 10 minutes talking at length before questions about the government's overall strategy, effectively in defence of its performance on housing, on jobs and on costs of living. That's because yesterday we got news that over the last year we have seen a significant amount of job losses, well over 1%, and all the details are in the email newsletter. Along with that, we've got a fresh report this morning from a group of housing charities along with Salvation Army, pointing out that now 1 in 1,000 New Zealanders are sleeping rough, that 14 in every 1,000 New Zealanders are living in uninhabitable structures, so tents, caravans, those sorts of things, and that the number of rejections by the Ministry of Social Development for emergency housing applications has risen by 383% over the last year. This came after the Housing and Urban Development Homelessness Insights report for June, which was eventually released by the government last week, showed that in our cities, homelessness, sleeping rough, it increased by between 25% and 225% over the last year since the government started removing people from homelessness emergency accommodation in motels. Between November and April, the government removed 84.5% of those people in motels and achieved its goal of reducing those numbers by 75%, 5 years ahead of target. Now, until now, it has denied that this has increased homelessness, but it's clear from the government statement last week, it is acknowledging now it is a factor in homelessness. This was reinforced today by the Salvation Army and other homelessness charities who have released a half-yearly update on their homelessness insights data, which they've given fresh detail there, and I've got a link in the email newsletter to that. I just wanted to also detail some of the news that's come out today and also talk about some of the language that came out of the Prime Minister's press conference yesterday, both from Christopher Luxon and from Finance Minister Nicola Willis. Right. So one of the things that surprised me a little is that after this series of data yesterday showing that homelessness was up, that joblessness was up, that the economy appears to have fallen into another recession in the June quarter and is struggling to get out. We've had various leading indicators showing manufacturing services sector are now contracting. And the ongoing drumbeat of news about the cost of living crisis is certainly continuing to hammer the government. And so in that 10 minutes where Christopher Luxon defended his government's record, he made a point in which he said that the government was simply abiding by the immutable laws of economics, that the best way to deal with inflation and high interest rates was for the government to reduce spending to encourage interest rates lower, and that would be enough to get the economy going. And he blamed the previous Labor government and softening of growth overseas for the immediate issues. Nicola Willis described the economy as a lot like an oil tanker that can't turn on a dime. Also, he again reiterated his strategy, which is cutting spending, reducing deficits, reducing debt, and reducing borrowing to lower mortgage rates to get the economy going again. I'm going to have a separate video where I talk about why that strategy is not working this time. Suffice to say, it worked previously because households were able to borrow substantially to buy each other's houses. That pushed lots of cash into the economy. And remember, we now have a housing market with bits stacked on for an economy, and that's how you get the economic growth going again. That's not happening this time around because the Reserve Bank is restricting lending to households. They're also more indebted than they had been since 2007. And also house prices are down 10 to 20%, and a lot of sellers simply don't want to sell until they see prices back at the peak again. So it's not working. But Christopher Luxon says we must double down on this plan. And it really was surprising for him to talk about the immutable laws of economics. There's plenty of debate about economics. Immutable laws are something that very few claim now of economics, particularly after the last 15 years or so since the global financial crisis. And for him to describe them as immutable laws of economics suggests that he isn't watching the field closely enough. So there we go, just a few charts to give you a sense of what's happening in the last year or so. Since the government said it was going for growth, we've lost nearly 28,000 jobs, including more than 12,000 in construction, and almost the same number of jobs for people aged between 15 and 19. And you can get a sense in this chart of how rising unemployment really hurts people who are young. So you can see the yellow line is the percentage of the population who are young, between 15 and 19, who have a job. So you can see there for a long period through the global financial crisis, it was up around 45%. Up until the global financial crisis, it was up around 45%. Then as we go through the global financial crisis from 2008-09 onwards, it fell towards 30%, rose a bit until just after COVID, has fallen a bit. And there was a period up until the election where it was rising again as more young people got jobs, as the economy was hotter, and it's come off again, and now we're back to global financial crisis levels. What's interesting in all of this is that the proportion of people over the age of 65 who are in work has continued to rise to the point where back in 2006-07, you had about 7% of over 65s who were in work. Now that's been doubled to 15%. Whereas the percentage in work for youngsters, 2007-08, has dropped from 45% to 35%. Just a couple of bits of sort of breaking news today. Guy Nesper has a scoop today that Philip Morris, who produce heated tobacco, you might recall were given a 1-year trial halving of their tax rates for heated tobacco at a cost of almost $300 million. It turns out that that trial has been extended by another 2 years. And news overnight coming through of the 15% tariff deal that Donald Trump has agreed with the United States. This would actually, if it goes through, increase the US tariff rate on its imports back to levels not seen since the mid-1930s. And also, interestingly, it's not been confirmed yet that it applies to New Zealand, but Trump said overnight that he saw a tariff rate of 15 to 20% as the rate for the rest of the world. Remember, the initial proposal for New Zealand and Australia was 10%. I'm Bernard Hickey. That was today's Dawn Chorus. And Chorus, and I hope you found it useful. If you're seeing this and you are not a paying subscriber to the Kaka, that's because paying subscribers have asked me to open this up, and we'd love it if you joined as a paying subscriber. You're able to comment and you get these reports earlier and in much more detail. Ka kite anō.